Hi, I'm Chris Hewett, Chief Executive of Solar Energy UK, and I'm here with John Toms from HBS New Energies to discuss opportunities for solar in the water sector. John, do you want to introduce yourself and give us a sense of what your role is?
Yep, I'm John Toms from HBS New Energies. I'm Head of Commercial. So I work on two parts of the business. I work on the development of solar opportunities, but I also work on the asset management side and run the PPA part of the projects.
Great, thanks. So, in terms of PPAs for water companies, why are you seeing that it's really relevant for them, and how much interest are you seeing for PPAs as opposed to sort of just building and operating their own assets?
Yeah, we've seen a lot of uptake since 2015. What we think it gives to the market is a bit of versatility. So it gives customers opportunities to engage in low-cost PPAs delivering clean electricity and allow them to deploy funds to decarbonising their current infrastructure.
Great. And one thing which, at a sectoral level, the water industry has got now a target to deliver 3 gigawatts of onshore renewables between now and 2030, which is fantastic. What do you see? I mean, you're obviously delivering solar for those sectors. What do you see? How much do you think of that is going to be solar?
From conversations with customers, it is an integral part of the overall strategy to get to that clean energy target. I'd say it's a very ambitious target, but what we see solar energy is a robust, long-term source of energy. And that's what we're finding customers coming back to because it's reliable, because it's tried and tested in the market. We're finding they're actually starting to engage more and open up other opportunities. So where we started with on-site delivery of solar and better electricity, we're seeing moving outside of the fence line, looking at projects just outside of the current asset and delivering private wire. Now we're seeing synthetic PPAs. So we're seeing it evolve, and since 2015, it's just grown. And with these targets and policies in place now, we just see the market starting to really have a steep trajectory and using solar.
And are there any aspects of those, if you like, sort of the private wire agreements and the sleeve, which ones do you think are going to be sort of the most popular as we go into the next few years?
I think for volume, it's going to be the synthetic and sleeve because the assets alone don't have a lot of area to use for solar. So where we see those projects having a quick turnover, where they're 200 to 500 kilowatts, and we can just put it alongside the asset, that's fantastic. However, to get to that target in 2030, you're going to need volume, and to get that, you need large areas of land. A lot of customers don't have that. That's why we're going to have synthetic PPAs and private sleeves.
Yeah. So even in the water sector, that land restriction is still tangible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of, so obviously at the moment you're delivering mostly sort of a mix of ground and roof mount solar. What's the sort of breakdown between those two, sort of the ground and the roof at the moment?
It's dominantly land. It is dominant. These assets are high energy intensive assets, and to do that you need to generate a lot of energy. You're either going to need a huge roof or large land, so there's much more land available. So it is very much dominant on land at the moment.
That's what I thought. And what in a sense were you expecting in terms of some of the other technologies? So are you seeing batteries starting to come in? At what point might you see floating solar become a sort of a major sort of development in water, or is actually the opportunity quite limited there?
For complexity of projects, we see the roofs are the quickest route to market. Obviously, I've just described you're going to need a lot of large sheds to create the energy that you need. We're seeing batteries come in more and more. So we've got partners at Angling Water that are engaging with battery technologies, which is fantastic, to cover off not only base loads of electricity and try and cover off those peaks. I think we're going to need to use those batteries. Floating solar is something in the market that people have been trying to introduce more and more. We find that because of the complexities of the installation, customers are focusing on ground mount assets first. But I think as we try to reach that target of carbon neutrality, we're going to have to utilise every available asset we've got, and that may be coming onto the floating solar as well.
That's interesting. So that's probably something for perhaps the second half of the decade. Whereas batteries is current. Batteries are going into water companies now. Is that right?
That's what we've seen at the moment. We've seen customers like Angling Water develop battery technologies. I think they've put forward a very, very good press release on what they're trying to achieve. But we do see as the technology is implemented more and more and the market becomes more comfortable with it, we think batteries will play a bigger part in the future.
Okay, that's interesting. Let's get on to the barriers and what's stopping this. There's clearly a lot of opportunities there, but what are you seeing at the moment as the biggest barriers to sort of rolling out more solar and batteries in the water sector?
From a developer point of view, it's the asset. So we need land, we need available space to put the solar on to draw that private wire to the source. As a developer, we're finding that we have to engage with customers early and de-risk the process. So we need to find the land, we need to find a suitable balance between the system and the asset that's going to take the power. And then we've obviously got to work through planning, through DNO, and we need to get public engagement and try and get the projects across the line that way. From a PPA perspective, we find that we have to engage with customers early and we need to provide volume of power. And we also need to have make them aware this is a long-term engagement, so it's a 20 to 25 year PPA agreement. But to de-risk that, we have certain parameters within contracts and agreements between us. So we let them know that this is going to be a 20 to 25 year agreement, but in there are safety measures for the client that allows them to break the clause through the term of the agreement, which makes both parties whole and happy if they need to.
And is there a sort of a rule of thumb for saying how often those break clauses sort of are put in, or sort of where does it come? Is it 5 years, 10 years?
No, we have a schedule over 25 years because what we found is working with water utilities, they need to react to the market as well, and their market obviously is wider than just energy. It's the customer, it's how they're going to look after them. So what they've come to us early on when we started doing PPAs back in 2015 and said, what if we need to develop the site? What if there's a housing boom and we need to expand our site to create further water recycling centres? And what we said is, okay, let's work with funders, institutional investment firms and create a model that allows both parties to exit and be comfortable through the agreement. So it's over the 25-year term. One of the other risks, of course, is it's signing into a PPA for 25 years or 20 years. Now, what we have to do is try and get customers comfortable with that number over the term. And of course, one of the other questions is, well, what if prices of electricity decrease? And then likewise, we say, well, what if they increase? So what we try to do is create a mechanism within the agreements that the price of solar, while it's always competitive, is close to market. So we call it a cap and a collar, which allows us to have a foresight of what that energy price will be for 20 to 25 years.
So yes, that risk is managed through the structure. Yeah, and presumably water companies are infrastructure companies, so they're probably more comfortable thinking about that sort of term of agreement than perhaps some other corporates who may not naturally think on those sort of 25-year timescales.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Some of the colleagues, like I said, at water companies also need to forecast energy demand, so they will typically buy power in advance. So what we have to do is when we're developing these pipelines and projects with customers is show them the trajectory of the power over the 25 years and when that's likely to start, so they can then work their commercial agreements in the background. Yeah.
And are there any sort of market or policy framework changes that you'd like to see to sort of encourage this further, either in in energy policy or I guess in the way that the water sector is regulated?
So just purely as an asset owner, when we're coming to develop projects, what we're finding is customers are asking us to build larger and larger sites instead of taking just the base load, try and increase the amount of energy we can deploy on the site itself. Of course, that then brings to us a slight risk for the export tariff, so the merchant risk that would come with that. So what we'd like to see, if possible, is a bit more security and certainty about what that export price is going to be. At the moment, we don't have that. So when a customer comes to us and says, okay, we'd like to have as large a system as possible from an asset owner, from a PPA perspective, we can either engage with them and say, okay, we'd like you to take a minimum take or pay of the power we would produce, but then that would put the risk on them. So collaboratively, we'd like to see a certainty of the export price, and that would help both parties be a bit more comfortable moving forward.
So would you engage, are the projects large enough to engage in something like the CFD, or is that sort of not really an option?
It's something, it's not really an option of what we were looking at right now, but it's potential for the future.
I guess other options might be, are you seeing, if there's co-location of batteries there, is there other options to engage with flexibility services and there's sort of ancillary services on the network as well? Is that something which you or your customers in water companies are starting to look at?
Well, that's what I think we alluded to a couple of questions ago about the battery technology. I think that's when it's going to start to play a vital role, is when customers are wanting to be almost completely sufficient on renewable energy on site. They're going to need those batteries to take off those peak troughs, the peaks and demands of what the water companies have, because it's not always a constant demand, obviously with climate, with weather, and with customers, that we often see various different peaks and troughs, and it's managing those energy demands. So batteries as an adjunct technology would be superb. And I think we will start to see that as more and more batteries are deployed, like solar. You know, once the market gets comfortable with it and prices start to come down, I think we're going to see more of it.
Yeah, and you're seeing National Grid and the DNOs start to open up a lot more of those flexibility products as well. So that's something which you'll be able to tap into. Yeah, absolutely. And what are the main risks that your clients sort of see, and what they need to understand to really get involved in this area?
So I mean, we've covered off price. That's one of the main risks. Longevity, obviously, the long-term contract. Human resource is one as well. I mean, as the market's going to expand, we're going to need those skilled individuals to help develop the pipelines and also install the projects. And that's one of the risks we need to start doing now. And it's something that we have looked at as a company, is how we are bringing people into the industry and how we're giving the skill sets necessary to deliver the project we're asking them to deliver. As you've seen, we've just come out of a global pandemic. Projects have almost stagnated, although HBS have managed to deliver a couple of projects last year, 11.5 megawatt with England Water. There is a huge deficit, and now people are starting to ramp those forward. We're going to have a shortage of skill set, I think, and that is something we need to focus on. If people are going to deliver targets, we need the bodies to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's something we're seeing across other aspects of the industry as well. Absolutely. Any other sort of issues which you think are sort of pertinent to discussion? I'm sort of just trying to get the overview here.
From a development point of view, there are many risks to move forward with. So it's actually trying to source and qualify a viable project. So what we need to make customers aware of and what people are now starting to get more comfortable with is the infrastructure they have and the upgrades that need to happen to facilitate the solar. So where we can have 140 sites that are put in front of us, actually qualifying those to a viable project that is bankable and investable takes time. So when we engage with our customers now, we try to understand what their aims and objectives are for the project, and we try to build a process map around that and how our experience can help them develop the project. So we have everything from site suitability, availability. We've got DNOs that we need to work with to get these projects connected. We have planners to work with. We have ecology and biodiversity. These are all things that we need to consider, and all risks that would stop a project from moving forward. And of course, biodiversity now is such a hot topic and more key than ever. And that's something we need to include in these projects.
Yeah, certainly what we're seeing in the larger solar park developments is the biodiversity benefits and habitat enhancements that can go alongside these projects are actually absolutely an additional benefit, I think, and we're seeing that more and more. So, and that's obviously something else the water sector are committed to doing into their net zero is not just around carbon. It's carbon use. It's also about carbon sequestration and all of those issues. So yeah, I think that's important.
Which is fantastic to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I think we've hopefully covered a flavour of the issues there for everyone. So good luck with your next projects, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.